Okay, it looks great. We are live. I think there's 30 people here and some more on YouTube. And they're still flowing in. Cheers.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. My name is Monty Clark. I'm the Conservation, Hunting, Angling, and Firearms Coordinator for the BC Wildlife Federation. Super excited about tonight's webinar. We've got Ashley Stuckless with us here from High BC Hunting. He's a very experienced backcountry hunter, and he's going to be essentially putting on a presentation going over kind of a how-to backpacking 101. So super excited. Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me, Monty. I really appreciate it. It's kind of really aligns with some of the goals that I've set out for this year to help new hunters and you know, help hunters in general and to just share a little bit of my experience. I mean, you never really stop learning, so I put together a little planning a backpack hunt 101 style deck here, and I'll just walk everyone through it. And, you know, keep in mind this is sort of at the building block level. And each one of these items, you know, you can go down the rabbit hole, and there's a lot to consider. But this will give you the basics. So for this presentation, we'll talk about the pre-prep, some e-scouting, backpack considerations, the actual backpack, boots, rifles and scopes, packing smart, hunting tactics, field dressing and packing out, safety and ethics and conservation. So with that, for pre-prep, the first thing you're going to want to do as a new hunter is research the regulations. You're also going to have to obtain your core, your conservation outdoor recreation education, your PAL, which is your possession and acquisition license. And depending on where you're hunting and what you're hunting, you may have to get an LEH or limited entry hunting authorization. And with that, you'll have to get the specific species tags that you're chasing. Uh, Another thing, sort of, you know, for the pre-preparation that's huge is physical fitness and conditioning. I mean, you don't have to be an Ironman, but you definitely have to put in some training to be able to trust your body back in the backcountry. Uh, you're also going to want to really do a deep think on your health and emergency prep. And probably one of the biggest is going to be your mental prep, you know, that mental toughness. You're no matter how well you prepare, you're definitely gonna come across challenges out there. You're gonna have things at home that are gonna distract you or you know, other responsibilities. So you have to keep that balance to keep your mental state solid out there. For e-scouting or desktop scouting, you want to familiarize yourself with the planned hunting area. Um, you know, when you're doing that planning, you really want to look, you know, well outside of where you're planning to hunt because things can change. And, you know, instead of having to leave an area, if you've got a couple backup plans that are close by, that can really come in handy a couple times a year. Weather forecast from precipitation and temperature. I mean, the forecast that you're going to get when you're, you know, when you're sitting in your at your computer at home, may be pretty misleading, but it's a starting point. And then if you have an inReach or a backcountry device that you can pull weather off, that's really useful, especially if you're going to be, you know, more than a 3-day weekend hunt. The other is temperature considerations. So when you look at the temperature, the highs and lows, maybe you're hunting around Prince George, you look at that weather network forecast. Sure, it gives you a high and a low, and then depending on the elevation, you're going to hunt in relation to that. For every 100 meters of elevation gain, you probably want to add or subtract rather 1 degree, and that'll get you close to what your nighttime lows are going to be. Uh, Really important, and especially the last few years, I've really dove into this is the smoke forecast. So I'll just whoops, I'm flying all over here. The What I'll look at here, this is a website I really recommend. It's made by UBC, and it's fire smoke. And what it gives you is all the active fires. And then you can see, based on prevailing winds, it gives you the parts per million. So that plays a factor. Like right now, oops, when we look at BC,
Sorry,
sorry,
Ashley,
this.
we can't see it on our end here, so.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry. Let's just go back to the PowerPoint then. Anyway, it's firesmoke.ca rather. It's by UBC. If you're going to be hunting and fire season's on, I highly recommend. It's pretty intuitive. Just go to that site, zoom into the area that you're going to hunt, and have a look at the smoke and fire conditions. It gives you some really good insight on the prevailing winds and how that smoke's going to affect you, because sometimes, if that's where the alternate plans that are maybe a little wider, sometimes 10 kilometers away, you're going to be, less impacted by the smoke. Uh, and then you want to be leaving a trip plan with someone back at home, your wife, your husband, your father-in-law. In my case, he's ex-firefighter, so he's pretty handy. With that, I was going to do a live demo here. Maybe if you just give me 1 second, I'll figure out how to share the other screen. Maybe it's not going to work too easily. Well, maybe I'll save that for the end, where I can go over a bit of a live demo of how I desktop scout, how I scout by planning routes, especially in the mountains. Sometimes you want to get into the next drainage. It's amazing how different things can sometimes look in the field. So planning routes through little narrow cuts to get you into the next drainage or to get to the area you want to hunt can be really useful. Uh, I use Onyx. I'm not sure if there's other software that has. I used to use FatMap before it got kaput for looking at slope aspect. So if it's really early spring, like before you're seeing the bears down around on the roads, I'll scout by elevation band and that slope aspect. So I'll find the snow line, and then I'll basically light it up and it grays out parts of the map that aren't south facing, and then the lit part is south facing, and then I'll close up an elevation band. And then, if I hunted the weekend before, I'll use that information to then fine tune the elevation band that I'm looking for, and also e-scouting. I'm dropping pins at the more optimal glassing locations, knobs. Uh, Backpack considerations. So if you're going to be doing, you know, for weekend hunts, as far as your gear goes, you can get away with a lot. But when you get an animal down, that's typically going to be an issue for, the lighter duty packs. So you'd be looking at something in that 60 to 100 liter range as a good option for a backcountry hunting pack. And that covers the 60 liter. I wouldn't be any smaller than that for even a weekend hunt. I usually go on the high side of even that and just use my compression straps to close things down, because I want that volume if I am successful. Uh, Packs are super expensive. The higher end stuff, I mean, it's there's a few pieces of gear where you really don't want to skimp on, and your backpack's definitely going to be one of them. You're paying for that toughness and that adjustability and its ability to really connect the load to your back. Um, a lot of the backpack manufacturers will say their backpacks are waterproof. Even the expensive ones are not. They can take mild rain, but you're definitely going to want to be using a rain cover when you're out there. Again, like I said, durability, that's what you're getting out of some of these heavier duty and hunting specific packs. I'm going to have a meat shelf, where you can have an area to, put in your game bags when they're full of meat, keep them out of your main pack. This can be really good at keeping your weekend pack small and still have the ability to pack out. Um, but even the larger bags, like both these bags on this, have a full sheet in each of the back between the frame and the pack bag there. So it's pretty essential, and then that keeps the weight as close to your body as possible. Because if you load the meat directly into the bottom of your bag and try to pack out of there, you're gonna suffer pretty badly. And then water bladders. I use dromedaries. I think that's what they're called. Instead of, something with a straw to it, because by the time late season comes, that straw freezes up. It's fairly useless. And the bladders that are usually with those systems are quite a bit weaker, and that's the last thing you want busting open in your pack is, 3 to 6+ liters of water if you're in a dry area. So these dromedaries, these are MSRs. I can't remember what the ones I use are, but they're noticeably more durable. For boots, boots are like packs. It seems like everything in hunting these days is sort of escalating in price, but boots are kind of one of those areas that you don't want to skimp on either. So you're really going to want to try these on. I have ordered boots online before. I've been lucky. I've been unlucky. And so you really want to get down to a shop or go to a trade show, try these things on. And, even if it's warm and whatnot, when you're trying them on, bring a pair of socks to the trade show that you actually are going to use when you're backpacking. I like to keep my sock profiles low as possible. However, they're not the socks that I wear around town typically. So, uh, with break-in, everyone knows you get new boots. If you don't break them in and you just run out there, you could be in trouble. I will say that a lot of the top new buck boots, both the boots that are here, these Crispies and those Loas, they were pretty much ready to ride out of the box. But I think that also came down to your foot conditioning. Like I'd already been pounding my feet up. They're toughened up and ready. So if you're fairly new to this in general, just get out on some training hikes with these. Specifically, go out on a hot day, overheat your feet, and see where the failure points are. You can see in this picture here, I've been hiking for 5 or 6 days. I got Luco tape on both my toes just because it was over 30 degrees Celsius, and so you're gonna have to prepare for it, even with good boots. Um, Another consideration with boots is the type of terrain. Uh, if you're gonna be, if you're just like not quite ready for the backcountry yet, and you're doing some truck hunting, we all do some truck hunting. some of the features that are in these hiking backpack boots aren't that great for walking around flat roads, and that they have stiff soles. They're made to be platforms. But once you get these on the slope, that's where they really shine. That's where all of that, well, the investment really pays off. It's because these really lock your feet in, and the last thing you want is a really sloppy boot. So fit and laced up nice and tight. So, and just like in this picture, these are both Gore-Tex boots, GTX boots, and yeah, breathable, okay. But when your feet are gonna sweat, you're gonna soak your socks right out. As soon as you get to your glassing area, whip your boots off, pull your insoles out, stick your feet into the air, and start glassing. Hopefully, hopefully a buck or whatever you're after doesn't jump right up in front of you right there. But if he does, hopefully you can get on your knees and take a shot. So, oops. And let's, so then when we look at rifles and scopes, so in the backcountry, I mean, you're looking at fairly open terrain, so the chances of having to take a shot that's 300, 400 yards away is a very real possibility, and getting closer may not be possible. So you really want to do a lot of range and training with your gun, some field shooting with your gun. Um, there's really no rhyme or reason to it as far as, how many shots does it take till you're confident. But I would say that if you're going to shoot over 300 yards and you haven't shot 2 or 3 boxes of bullets through that gun after it's been sighted in, you're, you're not likely ready for that shot. So, weight's a key consideration. Guns are heavy. You know, I really like to shoot for that 8 pound range for a gun, scope gun, the whole 9 yards. I think that's the sweet spot of having a gun that's stable enough to take some of those longer shots, and light enough that it's not that 11 pound, 10 pound gun I used to borrow from my dad. So, and it's not that 6 pounder that's jumping all over the place and you can't stay in the scope. So that's sort of where I've landed with it. For bipods, there's my main two different bipods are actually in this slide. This is my main backcountry one. It's just a carbon fiber one. It's a little lighter. And this is more of a medium front country or a weekend hunt. I'll take this deep into the mountains as well. But this bipod itself's getting close to 2 pounds. So, as opposed to 11 ounces. So you're going to want to be weighing those options. But a heavy bipod or a good bipod is essential for this open country style of hunting. When it comes down to the scopes, if you are, if you're going to be shooting within that 300-yard range, this isn't really all that relevant. But if you are going to, train yourself to be able to take a 500-yard shot, then you're going to need a scope that has an elevation turret, that has mechanics that are really reliable. I think we owe it to the game that we chase to, invest properly for long range or longer range applications, because with that you get the reliability of the mechanics, which is essential to be able to dial up 7 MOA or whatever the dial is for your shot. It needs to be very repeatable. And although some cheaper scopes have these options, they're rarely reliable that I've found. So, and then you're going to need a rangefinder. I think we all have one of those, whether we're backcountry or not. But this is definitely the type of ground where you're going to want to know the distance. It's hard to judge distance in the open country. You want to understand your ballistics, and if you are taking shots in longer range in the backcountry, you have to be very experienced with wind or avoid taking shots when the conditions are too windy. Okay, packing smart. I kind of did a brain dump of my bag on here, just to give you an idea. So the way it breaks down in my lid, so that's the stuff I'm using every day, basically my stove, my lighter, a day's worth of food, some coffee and electrolytes. I do keep my first aid kit in a separate pouch on my lid. I'll also have wet wipes in there with my first aid kit. Uh, in the top of the pack, you need to put the stuff that you're going to need often, and they're important to have close. That's going to be your rain gear, your pack cover. Again, I keep mine in an external pouch, so it's really easy to pull my pack cover out. Your puffy coat, sheep tarp, and your first aid kit. Again, I don't have two. I just accidentally wrote it down twice on the slide. So, mid pack, this is where good planning matters. This is going to be the bulk of your weight, so you want to get your food in there on the inside, and you want it against the back of your frame, so closer to your body. Don't stuff a bunch of gear down and then have your food, at 2 pounds a day. It puts a lot of leverage against you and can knock you off balance. So bottom of the pack, that's the stuff that you're gonna tear out once you've finally made your first base camp. That's gonna be your tent, sleeping bag and pad, puffy pants. If it's late season, if it's early season, puffy pants aren't necessarily necessary. And one pair of socks and underwear. Even if it's a 10-day trip, I never take more than that. But to each their own. In the waist belt pouch, headlamp number one. It's always going to be in my right pocket. My set of mid-weight gloves, a toque, and a set of extra batteries, so I don't have to dig them out if my battery dies when I'm hiking in the dark. I also connect. I have one of those pockets, but I actually have reverted to sort of carabiner style clasp that I just put on my shoulder strap with a 1 liter Nalgene. I really think it's essential to have a hard water bottle. Nalgenes are light and they're pretty tough. So, and then I got my phone, and depending on where I'm hunting, I'll have bear mace in there. For my bino harness, of course, the binos are in there. My rangefinder's on my right side. I have a small fixed blade knife with a little sharpener. It's this little, uh, I forget, it's a little buck sharpener. It's really handy. Um, and then I got lens wipes. I carry a lot of extra lens wipes just because I do some video stuff and that as well. Spare ammo. Always have at least one reload of my clip in my bino harness, sometimes two, depending on if I'm spiking out. And I have a replaceable blade knife, a little stiletto style replaceable blade, just because you never know when you're gonna lose your knife. And weight reduction, prioritize multi-use gear and lightweight alternatives. Um, this sort of that sort of thing sort of takes years to fine tune, unless you're really fortunate and can get the top priced light item. But it's taken me years to sort of slowly shave, a quarter pound, half a pound at a time through my whole kit, and it's kind of a rewarding experience to grind it out that way. Uh, for hunting tactics, you know, when you first get into your area or as you're moving into your first glassing location, you really want to start closer to yourself with your ideally, in my opinion, 10 power binos, and then work your way out, and then try and hit really quickly the higher percentage areas, the edges of trees, the edges of what might be feeding areas. And then, if you spot something with your binos and it's worth another look, I think that's where pulling the spotter out and getting a close look before you sort of make a game plan, you sort of get that long range decision of if this is an animal that you're going to pursue. So I will say in sheep country and goat hunters, uh, very much so would once you've exhausted the 10 power binos, you've put in a couple hours on them, then you will take your spotter down on its lowest magnification typically and start gridding with that. Start hitting the next range that's sort of little out of reach. Anything more than a kilometer with your 10 powers is really starting to ask a lot. You can get some good high contrast situations where it will work out for you, but typically, use those 10 powers in that 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometer range. Anything beyond that, I think once you've run out of that range, you pull your spotter out. For stalking and approach and the wind, it's kind of a two-piece. So basically, when you're in a situation, if you see a mule deer up on this slope here and, you've got a really, whoops, a really strong wind that's just heading across to the left, then what we typically do is we'll go over, it might put an extra couple kilometers on your approach. But if you've got him located and he's not actively moving and running out of the country, then we want to get to that downwind drainage and come up the drainage, get above or even slope, and then work across into the wind to pursue that animal. I all for everyone knows we call elk and moose, but I do a lot of calling as well for mule deer quite successfully. It's been a real you know uh, learning experience for me over the last 5 or 6 years to really add more calling to my mule deer pursuits. And then, patience and persistence when you're out there for hunting. Sometimes you're going to see an animal and it's going to make more sense not to pursue that animal, and you're going to have to, you know, be patient. Sometimes you have to go have a sleepless night in your tent and then pursue in the morning when the conditions are right or you have enough time for the approach. For field dressing and packing out, for the field dressing basics, there's a lot of information online. There's some great YouTube videos that you can go and watch some field dressing. I really recommend that, there's also some PDF style or some photo style. Just save those in your phone, take some screenshots, get that in your phone, especially if this is going to be your first experience with field dressing. And when I've been on many hunts in the beginning where I didn't have someone there, showing me the way, and I was just using little cheater systems to get myself through it. Packing out, obviously, this is going to be the heaviest pack that you're going to be dealing with. You want to take your time and load your pack correctly. You want to make efficient use of the animal. You've done all this work to get in there. You really, I think we all really owe it to the animals to utilize the animal to its fullest. And that means a heavier bag for you, especially if you're solo. I mean, solo backcountry is not highly recommended. This is where you really love having a buddy. You split it up. It's safer. Because with up to 120 pounds on your back, if you're taking camp and a full mule deer out or a full sheep out, you're pushing the limits of what's truly safe to do. So yeah, and even though you may not use your trekking poles when you're walking around for 3 or 4 days, I guarantee if you have trekking poles and you pack an animal out using them, you'll never go into the backcountry again without trekking poles. They're essential. Um, Make sure you have your headlamp, make sure you got spare batteries. Look for raised ground to take breaks. I you know, if you try and set down 120 pounds on the low side, you're going to struggle to get back on your feet. So look for those little humps so you can plant the pack into something and take your break. On extremely long pack outs, you definitely want to stop, take the pack off, give yourself a half an hour, eat some food, enjoy the experience, as miserable as it can be. But yeah, but for the short breaks, which you're going to take, like if you're going with 120 pounds on, you're only going 300 to 500 meters, and you're going to, once you really get into that, before you're looking for your next little, okay, I need 1 minute. And then you take a minute and then you go on and on. Safety. So, navigation SOS, you want to load your maps into your phone. I know phones are pretty delicate. Probably want to get yourself an OtterBox or a life case or whatever to help protect it. But on top of that, I think it's essential, regardless of satellite capability, to have a little inReach or a Zoleo or, a dedicated GPS, because they're tougher, and the batteries last a lot longer. So, but with that being said, even with a cell phone, I carry a few banks, but you want something that's going to be able to charge your phone 3 or 4 times, just in case you get it stuck on satellite mode, don't notice, boom, you burn through a battery in no time. And you obviously, for weather preparedness, you can't, to my knowledge, use these cell phones for weather. So that's where your inReach comes in real handy, and it also pings the nearest weather station instead of, the town that's 200 kilometers away. Don't rush, and take the long way. I've learned, even though I have that mantra in my mind, it always feels like you're in a bit of a rush. It always feels like you're running out of time. You really got to resist the urge to really, make a really, be steadily in that mindset. There are going to be times, absolutely, where it's now or never. I've got 45 minutes to get the deal done. You're going to lighten up and you're going to make a play. Okay, but what I'm talking about is if you have that going through your mind the whole time, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm not seeing anything. And then you really talk yourself into this frenzy that really doesn't make you an effective hunter, and it's very dangerous. And take the long way. Like getting cliffed out really sucks. It's really scary. And because going up is easier than backing down by a long shot. So you really want to, and sometimes the long way isn't that long. It's just a more sensible route into the area. And that's back to even pre-planning the route. So you already have the smart plan in your mind will help you not make those decisions. And yeah, your first aid, I honestly have been extremely Spartan with my first aid. A little bit of gauze, a little bit of medical tape or Leuko tape. But this year specifically, I've definitely upped that to have some Afghan bandages. Basically, it's a bandage with a D loop in it with the gauze on it. So as if you're alone before your hunting partner gets to you, you can actually put a pressure bandage on your own leg. And I'm packing a tourniquet as well. Oh, right here. The tourniquet as well. I mean, I fortunately have never been cut bad enough to need one, but I've been in a situation, lots of situations where if I had cut myself and didn't have that, I would have been, trying to jimmy rig something that wouldn't be anywhere near as effective. It's pretty light, and just put it in there as my recommendation. Uh, the other thing, bear awareness. You know, that this comes down to you've hiked 15 kilometers and you've been following game trails. Don't just stop and put your tent on the edge of that game trail. It's a game trail because that's where all the wildlife are using, including the bears, and that's just a way to have set yourself up for a chance encounter with a bear. And if you're in grizzly country, that can be pretty dangerous. So yeah, just be mindful where you camp, and obviously food cache, dry bags, hanging in a tree. We've all heard that. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be like, nah, it's all right. Just throw it in the vegetable. It's all fine. It's fine till it isn't. So just, you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself. And sometimes we get in a mentality where, it's nothing's gonna happen. Well, sometimes it does. I've never had a real bad experience, but it does happen. Uh, the last thing is ethics and conservation. So again, I really like to promote fair chase, ethical. Like it should be fair. Like it's game on with the animal. That's the fun part of it. You don't have any advantages that are, illegal or unethical. Uh, Respect for the wildlife. Understand the importance of being selective. Just because the regulations say, for me personally, the regulations say I can go out in October and shoot a 2 point mule deer. Well, and I have no issue for anyone that does that. But for me, my self-governance says no. I want to, I want to make it last longer, and B, I want to give the young guys a chance to grow. When it comes to youth hunters, new hunters, our seniors, I think that's where the October any buck season really kicks in. Um, Support conservation organizations. Obviously, if you're on this call, you're doing your part. I belong to a few organizations. It's good to be passionate about the organization that you're involved in. So, if you're a sheep hunter, look at sheep organizations. If you like waterfowl, well, there's Ducks Unlimited. There's people that are looking care where your dollars are going to go back to that habitat. Um, Obviously, only harvest what's legally allotted to you. Practice no trace. I think we should be leading the pack on the leaving no trace camping. I mean, if all the other camping folks out there are making it top of mind, I think that's not too much for us to ask. And I think one of the most important things is helping new hunters understand the rules and what it means to be a hardworking, ethical hunter. I think nothing spoils the experience more than cheating the system. Uh, but when you grind it out and it's right by the book, I think you're doing everyone and yourself a huge favor. And yeah, that's uh, that's it. Man, I talked a lot.
All right. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. I forgot to mention in the beginning there is a question box there, so we'd love to hear if any of you guys or gals have any questions at all. Ashley would love to answer them, and myself. So yeah, please check out some questions, and we're here for whatever you guys have. Looks like a few coming in there. Ashley, can you see those?
I can't see them. Yeah, I'm not sure. I got the chat open here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, well, I can
Sorry.
kind of read them out to you. No, that's all right. Mike Jones, he asks, what knife is that you're using?
Well, Mike, that's the Stuckless. You should
All right.
recognize it. Yeah, you should recognize it.
Yeah, it looks, I was actually looking at it myself. I was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, that knife's cool, actually. It really is. And, um, yeah, Mike helped me design it. And, but yeah, it's really cool. It's small and it really thing I like about it, what I don't like about a lot of knives is they have too much belly on the front, and when you're trying to do opening hide cuts, it's difficult. It takes a lot more force. You're in, you're out, and with that real slight profile to it, it just opens. Similar to the replaceables. That's why the replaceables are so efficient. They have a real straight profile, really
Right.
opens game up.
So did you make that knife yourself or you just helped design it?
Well, Mike actually made it. The guy
Yep.
that asked the question.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
So he's in Quesnel, Mike Jones Knives, and he does fantastic work.
Yeah, I know.
And I've reached out to him and said, "Hey, you do great stuff." And I can't remember if it was his idea, my idea. We should collaborate on something. And yeah, we built that knife, and he named it the Stuckless. I didn't name it, but I like the name though. It's
Well, there you
good.
go, everyone. Yeah, I know his
Yeah,
knives. He makes great stuff, so go check it out.
yeah.
And then Sean, I might, sorry if I bastardized your last name here, but Sean McLuhan. Anyways, he says, curious if saving ounces, why both a sheep tarp as well as a tent? It's a good question.
Um, I think the simple answer is your tent comes in and stays at base camp. You're going to be hunting all day, sometimes hours away from your tent in the backcountry, and when those 2 hour range sessions happen, getting under a tarp is essential. I mean, uh, and looking at the question the other way is, yeah, just bringing a tarp is doable. You have a lot more issues typically with holes in your sleeping pad, and it's just frankly not as comfortable. So, and yeah,
Yeah, I'd have to
that's it.
agree. Having a tarp is a no-brainer for me in my pack. I always bring it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Rob Clunes, again, sorry if I'm not getting everybody's last names right here, but Rob asks, any more tips on not getting eaten by grizzly bears?
Um, you know, I mean, the likelihood is actually low, but you just have to really set your camps up in smart locations. You have to do the hard stuff and move your camp. If you've located, a grizzly within 500 yards of your camp, it's probably time to make a move. And you got to play defense in those situations, even though it can be unlikely that the bear is going to come there. But I think you sort of run an active program. You pay attention. Obviously, I've been on some sheep hunts where I had this great desktop plan all laid out. I come in there and it's just like pile after pile after pile and fresh. And obviously, I can't run the game plan that I had. So camp is now 3 kilometers in another direction. There's an active, they definitely leave their mark. They feed heavily, and there's a lot of scat, and there's a lot of sign. So just read the sign and do your best. And if you're really worried about it, camp higher and camp on flat spots that are surrounded by bluffs and outcrops. There's a lot less animal traffic that will chance find you. But typically that may not be possible. But if it is, that's one other strategy to stay away from it. Think about where they'd walk, how they ease. They're lazy like us by nature, and they're going to take the easy way out. put your camp up in a harder spot, they're typically going to sail on by below you.
Yeah, right on. Um, Dominic Rubino says, thank you so much, Ashley. T. Bruce, he also says, just want to say thank you. We got Mike Jones here again. Any tips for cleaning and drying those water bladders? His always get pretty stinky, especially over the off season.
Yeah, well, I think that you definitely have to take them out. Mine have a handle right on the tail end of them. Take them out, dump the water, don't leave water in them, open the cap, hang them up, leave them hanging, take them when you go. That'll stop the mold from happening. Um, that's how I've managed it. I don't have mold issues, but I did previously in some of my platypus setups and that. But I think with those drometaries, I've been doing pretty good that way.
Yeah, that's a good one. I sometimes put mine in the freezer too.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I've never thought of that. That's a great one.
Dominic Rubino, he says, you talked about search by slope aspect. Is that only on Onyx or where do I find it?
Well, I used to use Fat Map, and I think they're called Gaia now, and I just haven't bought a subscription. I don't know if it's as the functionality's all still there or if it got watered down. That was a very valuable application, and the only alternate that I've got for searching elevation bands and slope aspect is Onyx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pacific Wild, they ask, do you bring a sill tarp with you in case of an overnighter? Which we kind of went over.
Yeah, for sure. That's my sheep tarp, my sill nylon tarp. I had the pleasure of sleeping under that without a sleeping pad and sleeping bag a few times, including the night before I got up and missed a ram in 2023 there. So I was doing scissor kicks all night just to stay warm. So yeah, but it was the right play for what I was doing. But yeah, it's I do.
Yeah. They also ask fire starter. What fire starter do you like to use?
Um, Boy, I don't know the name of them, but do you know those little fizz candies that come in the plastic wrappers? You pop them out one at a time. They're a military little unit there that I bought off Amazon. They're nice and light, so I just tear off whatever I need, and I've used those. In a pinch, I have a charcoal barbecue that you use those little they're a little bulky actually, but they work as well. I throw them in a bag if it's a short hunt, and I'll use those. But the military ones, you just rip them off, light the package, and bingo bango.
Yeah,
And I highly recommend that you carry it because it can be hard to light a fire, even with good patience.
agreed.
Yeah.
Shannon Sadlowski, they ask, can you recommend a good solo charger? Or sorry, a good solar charger?
Solar charger.
Yeah.
No, I honestly I can't. I I did have a small goal zero before, and it didn't work for me. So I just never kept chasing it. Maybe there's better options out there today because that was 5 years ago or whatever when I looked at that. I run a pretty battery hungry program. But I just never really found what I consider a reasonable option. I think they're great to carry for the emergency option if you're really down to that last moment where you need that GPS to work. At least it gives you the option instead of the battery packs. But I've just had great luck with these Anchor battery packs. They're fairly cheap, and they just have worked very well for me.
All right. Pacific Wild again asks, what caliber and scope of choice for you?
Favorite caliber is 7 PRC. Um, Favorite scope is Zeiss V6 3 to 18 by 50. And the reason because everyone, when they think, optics, they think, oh, what's the most powerful on the top end? And I think if you're going to hunt in grizzly country and even with bear mace, there could be a situation where you have to defend yourself. And having a scope that goes down to 3 power or 4 power is pretty essential in my mind. So I'd give up a little bit of top end just to have the ability to cover both spectrums.
Awesome. All right. Sean McLuhan. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not great with the last names here, but they ask for early season hunts when it could be 20 degrees, if you're a couple days from the road and the meat is warm for several days after you've quartered your harvest, how long before it starts to spoil? Any tips on reducing spoilage?
Yeah, you're way into the danger zone if you're 2 days after harvest, you're still in the backcountry and the meat's still hot. So in those situations, no matter how much you gotta hike, you gotta get low, you gotta get to a creek draw, you gotta get your bags hung down in the shade along the creek where it's cooler. In the evenings, it's warm out on the open faces. Those are going to start cooling down. As that air cools, it's going to draw down through the drainages, give good circulation. But, realistically, even with that, you're going to want to think about getting out of there. I know your buddy might have a tag too, but you kind of live to fight another day because anything more 3 days is probably the zone of travel that you're looking for, or in backcountry. And 2 days if it's hot, you're starting to push it for sure. Yeah.
All right.
And worst case scenario, sorry, Monty, but worst case scenario, I always carry a contractor bag, especially in the hot season. Well, I carry one all the time, but in the hot season, carry a contractor bag, put your game bags into that contractor bag, get some rocks on it, rock pile it in the creek, and that density of the water really does take the temperature down quickly, and that's how you could eke a little more time out of it.
Nice.
That's it. Yeah.
They also ask about how you mentioned showing some digital glassing at the end of our presentation, but maybe we'll answer the rest of the questions here, and then if you've got a quick minute to see if you can't screen share.
Yeah. Yeah,
some-
that's
Yep. All right. Jeremy Holmes, he asks, are you packing out full quarters, or are we allowed to debone in BC / just pack out the meat?
we are allowed to debone in BC. However, you still have to conform to having proof of sex attached to the animal. You also need the tail attached to one of the quarters. It's still really simple to do, even when you're quartering out, but you have to be conscious of that if you're deboning. I even asked the CO service at the BC Outdoor Show last year that specific question because I was concerned about it. I'm like, and I said exactly what I said right there, and they said that would be acceptable. So that's what I know.
Great.
Yeah, and obviously you got to take the antlers as well.
Awesome. And then Thomas Razui, they say for cold nights, how do you keep yourself warm and still be lightweight? Do you bring a stove or do you rely on other methods?
Yeah, I don't run a stove unless it's late season mule deer. Then I'm going to work out of canvas. They're all pushed down out of the high country anyway. So weight's not my concern at that point, but definitely it can get cold in October in the high country. The way I manage it is I will then I always have in October I'll hunt with puffy jacket, a good one, and puffy pants, and then basically I'll wear that when I sleep inside of my 20-degree bag, which is typically enough to get me through the conditions I hunt in.
All right, we got one more from Pacific Wild. He's saying for game bags, homemade bed sheet game bags or some kind of micro biological, type of game bag.
Uh, not I don't use pillowcases. I think I remember my dad using them on a few hunts when I was a kid. Uh, I think there's some really good options and they're lighter weight than pillowcases. Pillowcases are pretty heavy and they get really heavy when you soak them in blood and, it's got that cotton fabric just hanging on. Um, I'm sure they would work, but I think for air circulation, just they're hard to beat those antimicrobial, whether it's Hudo or whatever. Yeah.
All right, that concludes the end of our questions. So why don't we just quickly go
Let's
into
see if I can share here again and get the right screen this time.
thanks for all the questions, everyone. That was great.
Okay, I think you can see now, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This was that Fire Smoke website, and I'll just take 2 seconds on it. But here you can see a little fire outside of Vernon, and there's the smoke, the parts per million down here to the smoke density. And when, it's not really fire season yet, once it gets going, this thing's lit up, and you can really see trenches where you can sort of focus your hunt. Maybe the north side. The lake's blown out. Okay, we're moving to the southwest, whatever. Um, when it comes into to desktop with Onyx, there's a few others. I don't really know their functionality if they have this or not. And if someone leaves a comment that you can do some of this stuff elsewhere, I'd be happy to hear that too. But so that this is initially I'm looking at an area and I wanted to come up through this drainage. Doesn't take me too much planning through here, a couple waypoints, and then when I get to the high country, I'm looking to instead of sort of taking that beeline right here and going up to try and get to that saddle, risking getting cliffed out, I just look for little features and then all of a sudden, okay, now I'm into the next drainage. Then I'll do the same thing and plan my route down. Maybe I'm gonna head over here. Maybe I'm 2 days to work my way over into here. I'll do the same thing, plan how I get into the next drainage. There's it just endless. And what the feature that I love is here's the profile of the route that I just plotted as a demo here. And so it's 2.4 kilometers long. And it tells me my elevation gain is 924 meters. So a good little poke, just standard operating kind of a hike there. But what's important is I really try to get a zero elevation loss when I'm looking to get up to a saddle because it can be pretty disheartening uh, if you plan a route, and mind you, once you get in, let's see if we can edit this. It can get a little disheartening if all of a sudden, you're planning a route that looks good. Let's save that, and then you look at it. Oh, I still got no loss. But the point, the point of the story is you really want to try to take your gains over as long a distance as possible to get where you want to go. And you want to avoid losing gains. You don't want to have to regain back 100 or 200 meters in this hike, but sometimes you have to. I'm just saying, where possible, you want to take those losses away from yourself when you're trying to ascend. Um, and then when we get into sort of, oops, menus popping down. Well, here, let's just close that one. Let's close that one. And then when we get into looking at aspects, um, so if we want to look at south slopes, for example, so when I turned on, so I use this little pizza pie here. If I turn it all on, everything's lit up. But sometimes I want to focus on the north. It's early season mule deer. I will be looking for north faces. If it's spring bear early, I'm looking for south faces. So I know everything is south facing that's lit up on this map. This is extremely valuable for looking at big pockets of land because, it's, I don't know the specific area that we're talking about here, but you see this south face that's in the center that's lit up and it's dark everywhere around it. Where do you think the bear's going to be? He's going to be in this area. That's where the feed's going to be. So if you really want to focus on that, or he's not playing there at all because they're all out here hitting this area because that's where the feed is going to be present. And then when you take it to, you know, you've been out there a few times, then all of a sudden you can sort of take the elevation band on here and you can really start to sort of zero in on the elevation you're looking for where you've seen the most activity, where the scat is. So maybe it's super low, it's early. So, you're not going to waste your time up here where you've seen no sign when you know they've been hitting in around this 3,000 foot mark here, 3,500 foot mark. So those tools sort of just give you another level of nerding out, if you will, when you're doing your desktop. That's about it.
Awesome.
And that's a good feature too, actually, on here. I don't know now that I've got everything where you can actually uh look for flat spots for your camp. So that's a real good one when it'll only light up things from 0 to 6 degrees. So sometimes when you're up high, you can find yourself, a spot there. Looks like some maybe, yeah. So you can really start to zero in on some pockets that might work. I think, that's slightly less reliable because of tree cover and stuff, but I think it can really get you in the right direction. Yeah, that's about it for that.
All right. Well, Mr. Mike Jones has one more question here. He says, "Do these features on Onyx require a subscription?"
Yeah, of course they do. It's fairly expensive. I can't remember the price. I probably should know since they sponsor me, but the it's sort of like it becomes a tool, so you understand the value. So I don't remember. I think for a year, I don't want to even say a number, but it's not insane, but it's yeah, it's something to be considered in your hunting budget.
Yeah, I'd say it's completely worth it. It's a shame Fat Maps
Yeah.
isn't anymore. I really enjoyed that platform,
Oh,
but they just had such
yeah.
great.
The
The 3D was just
The
phenomenal.
best, the
Oh,
best, and they had a couple other tools and their offline maps were 3D on them, and they had real-time snow info, which I've been sending some messages back to these guys saying, hey, there's some features that get your GIS people working on these LiDAR files to be able to get the point data wired down and watered down enough to be able to make it usable. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll
It's a,
see.
it's a shame it's gone, but I think Onyx is the next best or is now the best. So the subscription is totally worth it.
Yeah, I honestly do think it's the best if you're going to do a paid subscription. I think I did look at the Stravia or whatever it was, and it was, significantly more expensive actually than Onyx. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, Yeah, Ashley, that was super awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and walking us through everything. I really liked your tips. I really liked how you said to slow down. That was I think that was some really good knowledge because sometimes when you're successful or when you're in a panic, things can go awry. So that was some good info, and the, two hot things, or the two things to really buy and spend money on, are boots and pack, and I think that was really wise. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and walking us through that, and really appreciate it.
It's definitely my pleasure, 100%. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys working with me to give me a platform to talk to some folks, and thanks to everyone that joined, and I really, really appreciate it.
All right, well, looks like we got a few people saying they're waiting for their high BC hat to come out. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, the swag wagon has been pretty lousy. I gotta figure it out. It's like I'm everything that happens is me, so it's just sort of like I don't have any more horsepower to do these
Yeah,
things. It's
fair
so
enough.
funny. Yeah.
Well, do you want to say where anybody can find you if they're wanting to reach out and check out some of your stuff?
Yeah, for sure. If you don't know, High BC is on YouTube. That's kind of where this started with, starting with some dad cam style footage of me and my buddies in the backcountry, and I've just been nerding out and digging in deep to try and show up. It's pretty inspiring when you look at all the content from some of the top people in North America, and I just want to try and be a part of that from here in BC. So, and then it's high_BC_hunting on Instagram. So yeah,
Great. Well, thanks again. We'll leave it at that, and really appreciate it, and maybe we'll do another one soon.
yeah, appreciate it, love it. Okay, cheers.
Take care.